Hi, hello from wherever you are around the world. I'm Jean Leggett, and today I'm going to be talking to you about mentoring and how do you create the win-win relationships between mentors and mentees, because it's something that our industry really needs to talk about. So let's get started. A lot of people ask, what is this mentorship like? What's the big deal? And honestly, truly, mentorship is that you're being guided by somebody who has more experience than you. What does that look like? Well, that might look like they're 3+ years more experience than you in the industry. And the idea is that it is a confidential and sacred relationship between the two people, that there is a sense of trust that has been imbued, because what it looks like is that we are friendly and professional. We're not going to be best friends, but what I do want is the best for you, and that's what any mentor would want for their mentee. And that's what I want from my mentors as well, is somebody that wants to see me succeed. That relationship might look like that we meet on a regular basis to provide accountability, support, and most importantly, it's about helping you understand how you can build and expand your networks so that you can expand your opportunities. What I really love about mentoring is it really is about learning from our successes and failures. So for those of you who follow my podcast or have seen me speak before, you'll know that I'm really big on sharing about our, not just our successes, but our failures as well, because there's a lot to be learned from them. And the nice thing about having a mentor that has a little bit more experience is they can help you avoid some of those pitfalls. So what do we talk about in mentoring relationships? Well, I mean, it's a wide range of a lot of different things. It could be anything from giving advice when you're stuck. It could be asking somebody for resources or direction. And sometimes they even ask you really hard questions and challenge you. I can share with you that I spoke with my mentor, well, I have a couple of mentors right now, and I spoke with one of them about my very overdue, long delayed game. And she had some pretty tough questions to ask, about whether or not it's something that I wanted to see through to the end, and if I wanted to make a time commitment, and if I didn't meet that time commitment, was I ready to let that project go? And these are the kinds of things that somebody with a little bit more experience or a lot more experience can say to you, and it doesn't feel like you're being attacked, because that's not the point of mentorship. Mentorship is really meant to offer you some deeper insights so that you can understand and appreciate that this person is speaking from a place of experience. The other things that you could be talking about with your mentors is about their career path. So if somebody is 3 to 5 to 10 years ahead of you, talk a little bit about what it was for your journey so that they understand how they can get to where you are, because oftentimes that's why mentees will come to us, is they want to be where we are. You can talk about goal setting, talk about the big vision. Ideally you find a mentor that has already done the things that you've done so that they can show you the way, as it were. You can also ask your mentor for some feedback on your resume, your portfolio, maybe even grant applications or funding applications, how to pitch to a publisher. I mean, a lot of those resources are going to be out there already on Game Dev Twitter and YouTube and the GDC Vault and all of those things. But the nice thing about establishing that professional relationship with somebody as a mentor is that you have somebody that over time really understands you and your business, or you and your projects, and you and your vision and where you want to go, and they become invested in the work that you're doing. Ideally, what will happen is that you'll develop a really wonderful and warm relationship with your mentor, that it will continue over time. Sometimes you'll enter into a mentoring agreement that you'll meet for 3 to 6 months, and maybe it will work or it won't work for various reasons. The timing doesn't work out, if it's not a personality fit, or other things. But oftentimes mentor relationships will continue on for years in a different way. So maybe you'll become professionals and colleagues, and your mentor will likely remember you for opportunities that are a good fit for you. And what they should be doing is promoting you and saying, listen, I've got this really talented person that I've worked with that I know works their tush off, and I'd really like to put them forward for opportunities. Sometimes, sometimes mentorship looks like motivational mentoring and emotional support and really role modeling. But I want to encourage people not to consider mentorship as an outlet for therapy. I find it helpful to be able to talk about the professional challenges that I'm having. And it's not like you can't talk about your personal life, because your personal life informs what's happening in your productivity and your work experience. But it's not meant for you to go and unload on this person that is your mentor. So mentors, I would encourage you to definitely set the boundaries. We're going to talk about expectations shortly, but boundaries are really important. And so mentors and mentees really need to understand that it is a safe and sacred place for you to have conversations, and that your personal lives they can't help but encroach on that a little bit, but that's not the primary reason why we have mentorship. So what are some of the other things that you can talk about from like that personal perspective or that motivational perspective? It's identifying your strengths, because I'll tell you, a lot of people struggle with believing in themselves. And the nice thing about having somebody who's a little bit more experienced is they can see where your strengths are, and they could say, did you know how amazing you are at this thing? Because if you were amazing at this thing, imagine if you believe that in yourself. And that's a nice thing that a mentor can do for you. They can also tell you when your internal critic is being a jerk face, right? Because that little voice in our head that's just saying you're not good enough, or that was just a fluke, or you're not really that special, who do you think you are? You know, that is not something that you have to hide from your mentor. You can talk to them about your imposter syndrome, and because that's not a therapy thing. That's just this is how I'm feeling about my professional self thing. And chances are your mentors have already been through it, and they can help guide you through it. So use that feedback constructively. So finding a mentor, I hope you like my 70s throwback to the Match Game. It's even before my time, but it's a pretty funny show. The remake is a little bit not that great. But how do you find the match for you? Finding mentors. You need to find somebody who's got at least 3 years more experience than you, mostly because that, a lot can happen in 3 years. So say you are a junior producer, and somebody that has 3 years of experience, has shipped a couple of titles, is going to have a lot more insights for you. Also, what I find when you find somebody that is in alignment with your track in your career industry, it is so refreshing, because then you could say, oh, I'm so frustrated by this thing. And the other person can say to you, oh, wow, you know what? That frustrates me too, but I figured out a solution, or here's my approach to fixing that particular problem. And it helps alleviate some of that extra stress that you might be feeling. I would suggest that before you go out and ask somebody to be your mentor, you get to know them a little bit, because it's kind of like asking somebody out on a date. And in fact, this is kind of like a short-term marriage agreement, not to be confused with what we're going to talk about later, which is inappropriate boundaries. But the idea is that you really should get to know somebody and dance with them and develop a rapport and some kindness and some communication. I once made the mistake of asking somebody who was highly impressive, Holly Liu, hi, if you ever see this, I just blurted out, like, I just met this woman, she really blew me away. And I was like, she sold her company for $1 billion, Kabam Games. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's who I want to have be my mentor. And I was like, could I be mentored by you? And literally had not done the work to establish the relationship, to, mentors need to know who you are as a person and where you're going in your career. and they need to get a sense of you, because it is very much a time commitment on the mentor's part as well as the mentee's part. But this is volunteerism, this is service for them, and so there needs to be an assessment of whether or not you're up to the task and that it's going to be worthwhile for them. So be prepared to say no. Holly did not say yes to me, but sometimes people say that they're too busy with home or work, or it's not a good fit. The other thing is sometimes people will say no because they don't believe that they are mentor qualities and they don't know how to be a mentor. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So ultimately what you want to do is find somebody who is a match and has the time to mentor you. Maybe you'll send them a brief bio of you with your links to your portfolio, especially if you're an artist or a writer, maybe your LinkedIn, and so that they get a bigger picture sense of you, and tell them what you're hoping to get out of the mentoring. You know, maybe you can say, I really appreciated your I appreciate your experience because you've done this many years, or you've shipped this many titles, or oh my gosh, you know, I'm a writer and I see that you're taking on mentees. I really appreciated your writing on this game that touched me in this way. So find a way to connect with people. So you found your match. Ta-da! Now it's about setting the expectation. So what does that look like? Well, just like anything else, it's what's the time commitment going to look like? How often and how long will we meet? So is this going to be every 2 weeks, every month, once a quarter? Is this a 30-minute conversation, a 60-minute conversation? Listen, some of you are going to find mentors who are, and mentees where you're just having so much fun. And in the before times when we used to meet face to face, you might sit down and go have a coffee for an hour and a half, right? So if you're taking on mentees and mentors over this period of time of isolation and work from home, set a schedule. I currently meet one of my mentors once a month. I have another mentor that I meet on every 2 weeks, and we meet for half an hour. And then I have another mentor that I just touch base with every 6 months or so. So, and I use them for different things. Those conversations that I have with people are very different, because one is for the nitty-gritty and one is for business strategy, and the other one is for sort of like the emotional founder support. So the other thing that you're going to need to navigate is the expectation of tone. Is this a formal coaching, mentoring relationship, or is it casual? Do I need to come with an agenda? For the longest time, when I was working with mentees, I would often ask them to come to the meeting with an agenda in mind, so that especially if we were doing like a half an hour session, that way we can say, okay, so you have these questions, let's make sure that I'm answering them. And that's also really helpful, that if you keep a running agenda going between sessions, that you can say, hey, you know what, I really wanted to ask Jean this question the next time I see her. So jot that down. Some mentors are going to be pretty cool and be like, I don't need an agenda, we're just going to sit here and chat. But I think you'll find that you'll get a lot more out of it if you come with an agenda. So what do you do? Is this just like chit chat? It could be just a chin wag. The other thing that might be really helpful for you is, like I said, using that time with a formal agenda and starting to notate some of the action items. So what are you committed to doing to move your project, your business, your career? You know, what are some of the milestones that you're looking to reach? These are things that you should be tracking as actionable goals. And I really like the acronym of CRAFT, which I literally just made up for all of you, which is make sure that your action items are clear. Do you know what it is that you're doing? Does it resonate with you? Like, is it hitting here? Because if there's no resonance, lordy, we know that you're not going to do it, because I'm not going to do it. Is it something that's actionable? So have you set a plan in motion that you can achieve this? Is it fun? I mean, come on, who doesn't like to have fun? And is it timely? So make sure that it's time bound and time specific, and be able to report back on that. So I have a confession. Does that mean that making an action item means that you are going to complete the action item? No. So sometimes you will say that here are things that I'm interested in doing, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to do them, that life doesn't get in the way, or that your plans don't change. That's okay. You can always talk about that in your next mentoring session to the point where it's like, huh, interesting. Maybe that wasn't important to me after all, and what I spent my time on was this. And you'll find that the things that are important to you, the things that matter to you, will be the things that take up your priorities. Number 4 is agree to be honest about your needs and expectations, both as a mentor and as a mentee. This really is something that is a constant negotiation. This is a dance. It's not a fixed relationship that's set in stone. And, you know, there may very well be you might have some additional time needs or communication needs, and any need that you have, make sure that you communicate that to your mentor and your mentee, because you know what happens when we don't clearly communicate is people start to fill in the blanks and they make up stories in their head, and that just, I think, drives people to anxiety and madness. So let's just get things clear and on the table. Lastly, I think we really need to talk about is boundaries. So remember when I talked about in the beginning how we're not going to be besties? Well, we may end up being besties, but I don't want you to go into mentor relationships expecting that this is meant to be a friendship. You can be friendly, but you need to be friendly and professional, because that's really the basis of mentoring relationships first and foremost. And, you know, when we're talking about boundaries, are you okay with your mentees, mentors, having your personal contact information, like your text, like your phone number? Do you want to be contacted by phone? Is it video chat? Is it video chat with the camera off? Is it, some people just do mentoring relationships over email because that's what that is what is most comfortable for them. And how often is it okay for people to message you? You know, it's, the other thing is you want to make sure that you're not overly clinging to a mentee or a mentor. Chances are that clingingness will be towards the mentor and wanting their opinion on each and everything, and that's also not what this is about. This is about you providing some guidance as a mentor and mentees coming to you at prescribed times, but also communicating what's happening in their lives. So, I mean, it really is this negotiable dance, and you're going to step on each other's toes as you get to know each other. But really, truly, it's the mentees that are driving this dance. They're the ones with the moves. Don't ask me to dance. I'm not a great dancer. I've seen some pretty cool TikToks, though. So, like I said, mentoring works best when mentees come with questions or an agenda. And honestly, truly, if you're having an off day, happens to all of us, happens a lot more during these times, just show up. And it's better to show up than to like cancel an appointment, because you'd be surprised what comes out of those meetings, even the ones where you're not feeling the greatest. And you can just be like, hey, so I'm having this issue with another artist on my team, or I'm having this issue with my boss, or man, I'm really stuck on how to present this to a publisher. And you might not be having the best day, and maybe you're not bringing your 100% awesome self to it, but they'll be able to talk through this with you. What should you do, mentees, between meetings? Well, work on those action items as best as you can. And it's totally okay to send brief updates from time to time about your wins and some of your challenges, but you don't need to be emailing them every single day unless that's something that you've agreed upon. But that seems a little bit like overkill. I don't even email my best friend every day, okay? No need to be a drama llama. We talked about that boundary issue. Somebody does not need to know everything that's going on in your life. That is more of a bestie than it is a mentor, and really want to keep the lines of that as professional as possible. And, you know, I just want to remind people it is okay if your progress is slow or even sometimes halted. Like I said, I had a commitment that by the end of August I would have done something, and it is now the end of September and it is still not done. And it's made me realize that maybe that's not a priority anymore, or I need to set a new timeline. And that's just the way that it's going to be, okay? But if you're making progress or working towards something slow and steady, cool. If you're one of those super driven people and right now you're just feeling, I want to get this done and I want to power through this and I want to maximize all the experience that I get out of my mentors, that is totally cool too. I would also encourage you and your mentor to track your progress over time, because I think it's really neat. People often forget the progress of where they've come from. All right, so you're not the same person you were when you started your career. You're not the same person when when the day that you graduate from university, you're not the same person as you were when you started university. So much changes over a period of time, and a relationship with your mentor, usually between 6 months to a year. And you'd be surprised at how much changes over that time. I actually got an email from one of the people that I mentored through Girl Geek Academy, September of 2019. And she emailed me out of the blue and she said, my life has changed so much in the past year and I really appreciated meeting you. And that was just a very short mentor period. It wasn't like a one-on-one mentoring for a number of months, but don't underestimate your impact as a mentor, and also don't underestimate the impact that you have as a mentee. It means a lot to us to be able to share our experience and see you benefit from that. You know what I love more than mentoring? I love mentoring slides with typos. I love mentoring. There's your screenshot right there. I love mentoring. Mentors are, we come into this, we are meant to be insightful. We are meant to be like cheering you on. Ooh. Friendly and professional underline. And it really is about holding you accountable, right? We're not meant to just be like, yay, good for you, you get a participation award. It's like, so you made a commitment to do this, you seem to be struggling with that, what's up with that? We want you to succeed, and most importantly, I'm hoping that the games industry will continue to change and shift, because we want to make sure that people feel included, especially people from diverse backgrounds. We do this because it benefits both of us. Mentees get access to information and experience that they need. They get access to networks. So for example, people who end up mentoring with me, if they have shown me over a number of months that they are dedicated to their craft and that they're working towards that, and there's an opportunity that comes up, of course I'm going to think about the person that I've just spent the last 6 months with to say, hey, you know what, this is a really top-notch person, and I want to be able to promote and sponsor them. We need to do more than just give people money and platitudes, right? Like, number one, people give, oh, good for you. Guess what? Platitudes don't pay the rent, but opportunities and money do. So, and I'm not saying give money to your mentees. What I'm saying is give them opportunities and sponsor them, i.e. lift them up so that they can go into leadership roles, into better paying jobs, and really champion and cheer them on. I will say that as a mentor, it really makes me feel useful and supportive when other people can learn from my mistakes, and I'm really grateful to be able to share that. It's a personal value of mine to work at opening the doors for other people constantly. That may or may not be a value that your mentor has. They might just think, oh, hey, this is cool, I'll try it once or twice. Cool. But ultimately, I think that when we have strong mentor networks in our community, but also within our companies, it changes the industry for the better, because it does a couple of things. One, It provides junior people with more experience. It provides people who are a little bit further along experience in leadership. And if we can work our way up and have more people, what our industry really needs is it really needs more very senior mentors being made available to people with the 5 to 10-year range, right? Mentorship is about having that personal connection and having that sounding board that helps us from feeling like, oh my God, this is crazy making, and I can't see my way out of this paper bag, and somebody else can say, hey, I've been there before. I've been very fortunate in having conversations with hundreds and hundreds of people over the years, including people who've had some very successful studios. And funny enough, the stress and the crazy making is pretty much the same no matter the size of your studio. It's just different problems, different size of problems, but they're the same problems. So the next slide, I want to talk about the creepy stuff, right? So I know this is a lot to go on one slide. I put a lot of words on one slide. I apologize for that. But I really wanted to talk about predatory behavior, not because I think that people who enter into mentoring think, oh, I'm going to be a super creepy dude or creepy gal or creepy non-binary person. I mean, the creepiness ick factor can apply to anybody. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the red flags that you need to be aware of, because this is predatory behavior, and it's sometimes easy to overlook. And maybe you'll look at this list and you'll hear me and you'll say, huh, that's not my mentor, but that's my boss or my friend's boss or something like that. These are signs of very unhealthy relationships, and specifically geared towards the mentoring is what I'm talking about. But I want you to be paying attention to these, okay? So mentors, even though they are wiser in your little air quotes, mentors are not the boss of your personal or professional life. If you're in a work situation and your mentor is your boss, well, obviously they are the boss of your professional life, but that does not mean that they are the sole dictator of your professional life, okay? They should not be, listen, it's one thing to be friendly and cheer people on and be like, yeah, you're really amazing and you can do this. But it's super creepy when it crosses that line of, showboating your mentee to everybody, be like, this is my mentees, mentee, and just like putting your mentee on a pedestal, and it's overly excessive, and lavishing them with trips or gifts. And I really want to caution you to think about that, because that is often the grooming behavior and how somebody breaks down your barriers, right? It's in narcissism, it's called love bombs. So this could also happen in a mentor relationship as well. A mentor should never, ever, ever threaten to derail your career if you don't comply with their request. And if somebody says that they are going to, blackmail you or derail you in some way, listen, I've been there. I have been extorted by somebody, and I didn't know any better, and so I let them have power over me because I was absolutely afraid that they were going to destroy our company. Turns out they're just a big jerk face, super big jerk face. Just hang on to that one. Mentors should never physically touch you. I know that this might be kind of like a weird thing, but consent is really important. So even hugs, right? Like handshakes were kind of like, that's an expected normal behavior. But hugging your mentor, unless you're both acknowledging that it's okay to have a hug, then I would just keep it to handshakes. You should definitely not engage in a sexual relationship with your mentor or with your mentee. So please hear me. You might develop really deep feelings for somebody that you're working with as a mentee mentor. don't. Please don't. It really wrecks it for everybody else. Mentors should never make you feel like crap. They should never threaten you, berate you, humiliate you, or otherwise be a jerk face. I feel like that's my new insult lately. Do not be a jerk face. Mentoring is not meant to be that. They're not supposed to say, "Oh, I can't believe you didn't do you had such an easy assignment to do," or "That was really stupid the way that you handled that." That is completely inappropriate talk, and that is abusive. It's verbally abusive, and it's completely unacceptable. Please be on the lookout for mentors that make you feel awful. Whether they're making passive-aggressive statements or just straight-up aggressive statements about homophobia, racism, sexism, ageism, ableism. Like, if people are garbage and they are also your mentor or your mentee, you have every right to terminate that relationship and just say, "This is not working for me." You don't have to explain why. You don't have to tell them that this is your experience of them. You don't owe them closure. You can just say, I would like to terminate this relationship. Thank you for your time, and just move on. Okay, so your safety comes first, most importantly out of everything. If you have somebody that you can trust, talk to them about it. But number one, you need to end the abusive relationship as soon as you can, because that is definitely not the kind of relationship that we want to see anybody in. Okay. Nobody wants to talk about this stuff because it's the dark and ugly side, and mentoring is supposed to be very positive. But what often happens in anything where especially when there's an age differential or even a career differential, is sometimes people go, "Oh, but they're my mentor," and then they look up to them and they put them up on this pedestal, and my mentor must be perfect because they have 5 or 10 years more experience than me. And guess what? Just because somebody is a little bit more experienced than you doesn't mean that they're perfect. So please allow your mentors to make mistakes, and mentors, allow your mentees to make mistakes. And most importantly, your personal boundaries should always be the thing that guides the conversations between the two of you. You know, when we talked earlier about mentorship not being therapy, there may very well be mentees that disclose things that are happening that make you uncomfortable, such as sexual harassment or racism in the workforce or things like that. So you're going to need to be prepared for some vulnerability and disclosure that will happen. And I didn't even make a slide for that. So sometimes the conversations that you're going to have with your mentees and mentors are going to be a little bit on the heavier side. And I want you to be mindful that this is a confidential and safe space, and either direct them to the appropriate resources, or just create an opportunity for them to be able to talk about that safely. All right. So, hey, listen, you avoided having a jerk face mentor. In fact, you had an amazing mentor, you had an amazing mentee, and you're like, "I am ready. I would love some more mentoring." That's great. I'm super, super excited to hear that. I find that people have often said that life is just so much easier when you have somebody that has gone through the journey along the way and is able to take you on that journey as well, or at least show you. Well, thanks to PowerPoint, I can actually stop and force it to go back to the last slide. All right, so you think that you're ready to be a mentor. And so the number one thing is, people often don't think that they're qualified to be a mentor, even people with like 5 to 10 years of experience, and they feel like they need to be old and grizzled like me. No, you don't have to be old and grizzled. However, being grizzled has its advantages. So you think that you're ready to be a mentor. Honestly, truly, if you have at least 3 years more experience than somebody behind you, then you're ready to be a mentor. It really is. You don't have to have all of the answers to be able to guide somebody through that conversation. You just need to be able to create that safe space and provide them with your experience and your perspective, and trust that if you don't know something, that you're able to go and look up that information and be able to pass that on to them. I would encourage you to do a reflective self-analysis that is realistic versus the one of your internal critics. Like, oh, well, you know, I'm not ready because XYZ. You know, there's so many people out there that would be better mentors than me. So, I'm looking at you right now. Did you know that you are ready to be a mentor? Even somebody that's in college could be mentoring somebody in high school, or just making themselves available for a one-on-one chat every once in a while and encouraging them. And I think it's especially important for women to be mentoring and for developers of color to be mentoring. And I know the one thing that we don't talk about is how that puts an undue burden on us to continue to give and sacrifice our time for other people. And I get that, because our lives are already additionally burdened, especially as femme presenting people have more responsibilities in the house and in the household, and doing all of that nurturing stuff that we're supposed to be doing in household care. But honestly, truly, I think that if you can make the time, even on a quarterly basis, at the very least, to spend an hour and a half with somebody, then what you're doing is you're inspiring somebody, because if they can see it, they can be it, right? And the more that we can encourage other people to come into our industry and say, listen, we know that the industry has its problems, because we all do. We all know that there are problems with discrimination and crunch and culture and toxicity and all of those things. But I think that if we can create a large enough network of people who are excited and want to champion the work that we're doing, that we can grow these wonderful communities, and we can shift the culture inside companies sometimes if we are all moving towards that goal. For me, I have a selfish goal that the more people that I can reach with the message of compassion and empathy as a game developer, that maybe that will stick and that will become the norm. That's the dream. And I would encourage you, especially, you know, with mentoring, it really is a great opportunity for you to give back, because I wouldn't be where I am in game dev if it weren't for people that came before me. And not only am I talking about the pioneers, the pioneering women that came before me, but also all of the people that I've been fortunate enough to be able to call upon for advice and support, all of our former mentors and advisors. And those have kept me from going crazy sometimes. Can you do peer mentoring? Can you mentor somebody that is the same level of experience as you? Yeah, I would call that, yeah, sure. We can call that peer mentoring. That is okay too. And it's nice to have somebody that you can rely on to be like, oh my God, I'm so frustrated by this thing. Liam Essler is that for me. Hi, Liam. And, you know, it's okay to have somebody. The most important thing is that you have somebody that you can talk to, and that you can talk to about the barriers that you're facing, and two brains are better than one. So for you, if you're ready to be a mentor, it's an opportunity for you to develop your leadership skills. It's a great thing to put on your resume. I've been mentoring for actually quite a long time, but very formally in the last couple of years in the game dev space. And I include that on my resume, because what that says about me is that I really care, and I'm willing to do the work to put it forward to change the industry the way that I want to see it. So at the end of the day, here's the slide that we got stuck on. At the end of the day, I want you to really focus. And hey, I've got ADHD. Sometimes that's harder than said than done. Find your passion. Get organized. and find your A team. These are the people that are going to be part of your mentoring network. They're going to be your peers. They're going to be your friends and colleagues. Find your A team. Commit to yourself and the plan that you want to move forward. If it's a career plan or a project plan or a business plan, make that commitment. And you actually have more resources than you know. And I also don't want to be oblivious to the fact that some people have more resources because of their privileges that they have naturally have come into as a result of where they are financially, economically, geographically, etc. Use the relationships that you have. Leverage, use, call upon. Call upon the resources and community that you have, and you would be really surprised that people will want to support and champion you. Well, you shouldn't be surprised that they want to, but you would be surprised at people so actively wanting to champion you. And it's a really wonderful thing. So, and listen, if you get stuck, you can always shake it off and just decide to do something else that is resonant. So don't worry about it. This isn't about being perfect. Having a mentor isn't about having somebody mold them in their Svengali image. This is not a puppet master thing. This is just treat your mentor as maybe a lighthouse on the rocks that says, hey, you don't want to crash your boat here. Let me show you the way. Let me lead the way for you. And in the meantime, appreciate that it's a two-way street. It's a dance between two people. Book those appointments, show up, have an agenda if you like. Give feedback. Let your mentor know what's working for you, what isn't working for you. Occasionally, it's kind of nice if you ask your mentor about their goals. So it shouldn't all be, just engage. Have an engaging conversation. Treat them like humans because we're humans too. And think about building your network. And most importantly, I would say be bold and be gentle with yourself and always assume the best about yourself. It's so easy for us to be down on ourselves. So assume the best about yourself. I think that you are pretty darn amazing. So let's do this. Go find yourself a mentor. Think about what kind of mentor would be good for you. Like how many more years of experience do they have than you? Is there a specialty that they have that you're interested in? And, maybe jot down a few names and start to open up a conversation of like, hi, maybe you can't do that in person at this conference because there is no in person at this conference. Start a Twitter conversation with them. Check out their website. Follow their portfolio. Comment on the things that they say on LinkedIn. Send them an email saying, I've been following you for a while and I'd really like to connect with you and I'd like to develop a professional relationship. Don't be shy. And remember, people might say no, but a no is that much closer to a yes. And you are already amazing, so let's get her done. Bye.